Welcome back to this episode of By the Wayside. Yeah, that's how you open a show, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Jordan Middlebrook, and I have been taking singing lessons, and they have not been working. Or have they? I don't know. Write in, let me know. Send me a distinct message. On today's episode, I'm going to be speaking with Adriano Ariganello. Of course, there's going to be an Omar recommends. We're going to be having lots of fun because you never know what's happening here on By the Wayside. So, yeah. Welcome back to this episode of By the Wayside. My mic is in a weird spot. I keep adjusting and fixing between everything. The seat is there. We go. The seat felt like it was a little off kilter there. Yeah, I feel a little bit more comfortable. When I used to do television, there was sit-downs, interviews with the guests like I do here on By the Wayside, and then sometimes there was segments, there was a countertop where I could stand. I always found that when I stand, it's when you get the best, what's the word, I'm my best when I'm free, I'm not encumbered by a chair. Maybe that's something that I can explore over 2025 here on By the Wayside, maybe stepping up literally and figuratively about how the show, either way, is what it is. I mean, I enjoy everything I do here on By the Wayside. Today's episode is really fun. We learn about what Kickstarter is, and I wanted to talk about, I'm not going to tell you what it is because Adriano is going to explain what a Kickstarter is, but some of the things that I've kickstarted in the past, a couple comic books. I kickstarted a documentary, a He-Man documentary, years ago, years and years ago, I think 2021 maybe, and I know it's 2025 right now, but it's such a long process and process/progress for them. So I look forward to at least seeing the documentary. I'm a big fan of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So I'm a big fan, and I look forward to seeing my name in the credits because it says, sometimes when you kickstart a movie, it'll say, backers or whatever. So it'll say Jordan Middlebrook or Little Mr. Sassy Pants. That's me. I also kickstarted this thing for my wife, and it was an organizer. You put it down like this, and then you put a card up like this, but it had magnets, so you could it would hold the paper down. So it was a very interesting way to keep yourself organized of your tasks, and what needs to be done, what doesn't need to be done. It was a really cool thing. UGG mount or UGG something. I'd have to look at my emails. That was a long time ago too. But mostly comic books. I did a couple board games. It's always interesting. It's an interesting world when you crowdfund or kickstart a project. You never know what you're going to find. Yeah. With January ending, 2025 has got to be hopping. You know what I mean? And the reason why I say it's got to be hopping is because these episodes of By the Wayside, they're pre-recorded. They're pre-recorded because sometimes it's easier, not sometimes, most of the time it's easier for myself, my guests, and Omar to sit down, plop down here, and do our shows unencumbered. In the future, you're going to be seeing a lot more of Wayside, me at Wayside here, doing By the Wayside, introducing you to, I forgot the mission statement for the show all of a sudden. The mission statement for the show of By the Wayside is to introduce you to creative people that you didn't know existed, and people that I feel that, not just I feel, people that need to be known, their stories to be known. If you want to be a guest on this show, you have an amazing creative story. You could be, in the past, we've had podcasters, we've had custom framers. We, of course, have had artists, writers. We had movie writers before, which is interesting. Movie writers, screenplay writers. I want to stop that, circle back to what I was saying. The end of January is here, and we're pre-recorded, and I wrote this down. I sure hope nothing happened during January that I'm missing, because A, this isn't a news program, and B, this is pre-recorded. So maybe on the next episode or 4 episodes down the road, they'll be like, oh, hey, remember what happened in January? God, I'm so stupid sometimes. Usually up to date. You can find me on my social media. Usually I'm pretty active on Instagram, TikTok, and all that stuff. But you can follow the show on Instagram as well, Facebook, to get, up to date information about the show, where we're going to be, If you want us to host a show, we'll promote your show. We'll come to your show. You come to us. Tell me about your event. We'll do all that. We'll have lots of fun. I'm looking forward to this episode. I want everyone to know more about what Kickstarter is and what crowdfunding. Whoa. We should start a thing called crowdfunding. Let's do that. Science. Stick around. We got lots of awesome things happening on this episode. I'm going to nope, this is empty again. I got a travel mug. It's my Mickey travel mug. I forgot to fill it up. That's what happens when I don't pre-plan. Stick around. Let's do the show. That's the ultimate conundrum of where do I put these things. It's like the Tetris of creativity. Wait. Well, Tetris is already creative.
Yeah, in a way. But there's like logic and math to it.
There's math in Tetris?
Kind of.
I'm going to have to call you on that one.
It's the new math. I don't know if you've seen the new math.
I have a 14-year-old daughter. I'm quite aware of what new math is. Well, actually, no, I'm not aware of what new math is.
That's the problem.
I have no clue what's happening.
I look at it, I don't understand how you make sense of that, but okay.
Just give me 1 + 1. That's all I want. We know that 1 + 1 = 2. Welcome back to this episode of By the Wayside. I, of course, am your host, Jordan Middlebrook. And with me today, I have, and I wrote these down, writer, letterer, crowdfunder, publisher of many things, Adriano Ariganello. Thank you very much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Long time coming.
I agree. We had talked about that right before we started. And yes, it is a long time coming. I had mentioned to my wife that I think we had originally tried to meet up in, I want to say August.
Yes.
So it's December when we're recording this.
Yeah.
So it's a long time coming.
Absolutely.
And again, thank you very much for coming in. I really
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
So we'll get right into the questions because your career I find very fascinating. And whenever the idea of kickstarting comes up, your name comes up. So we'll get to what kickstarting and crowdfunding is, but I do have a question. The question is, I screwed up the first word already. Your website states that you've been writing for more than 20 years. And in that 20 years, what are you most proud of?
I think what I'm most proud of is basically the work I've been coming out. It's kind of the corny answer that your latest thing is your favorite thing. But I'm really happy that I was able to get this series off the ground. I had a recent Kickstarter called From Parts Unknown. It's like a pro wrestling horror comic. It's kind of silly, but it was a long time of gestating on it and thinking about this story. I told the story when I launched it that me and my brother would do long drives to Detroit. Red Wings fans, so we're always on the 401, right? Sitting, and I'm boring. I talk the whole time. He sits and bears with me. So I was pitching him this story for years now, and it's changed completely from what it was on that drive. But I'm happy that I got to a point where I felt confident enough to make that story and have it actually finally come to fruition. It was just a silly idea to entertain ourselves on this long drive. Yeah. And now it's real. It's like a real thing. I can hold in my hand. So yeah, well, very happy with that.
The beauty of stories, and as you grow older, you realize that the stories that you told mean something. So you're talking about a comic book series that you've created has come to fruition, and you have like this amazing background story to tell. So I get that how that would be the most thing that you're, did I say proud of? Yes, I said, I just double checked that I said proud of. The most current thing that you're proud of, because I'm proud of the show. Every episode that I do is better than the last. Yes. Not necessarily the guests, my current guests. I'm not going to say every guest.
How could you? Yeah.
But because I learn something new, I get to hear new stories from guests, and then I apply what I've learned here onto the next episode. So I am 100% on board with that. So I had said in your introduction, when I introduced you, I called you a writer, a letterer, a crowdfunder, and a publisher. Out of all of those, what have you found most fulfilling?
Fulfilling, I think that's easy. It's the writing side of things, right? I've been like you mentioned, I've been doing it for a really long time. Only lately have I been taking it as seriously as I have been, right? I've always been doing short stories and screenplays and all kinds of things, submitting to competitions with some success. So now it's actually, people are picking up my books through crowdfunding, through all that, and reading them and telling me they enjoy them. And, I come to places like here and meet people who've read my stories. It's all through the writing. Like all the other stuff is great. I'm very happy to be doing it. The writing is the is the foundation for everything else. Kind of springboards off there.
I could see that because when you write, it's what you take from your head, you put it on paper or on computer, I guess, whatever, however
Yeah,
anyone
yeah,
decides that they want to write, and you get to you allow the world to see your creativity, your side of things. You know, one plus
absolutely.
one is two, but in your comic book world, one plus one could equal three.
Yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, it came right back around to math, Adriano. So in that last question, you had mentioned Kickstarter, you had mentioned crowdfunding.
hmm
I'm going to ask you, what is crowdfunding?
Yeah, so crowdfunding, it's like a new platform for new. It's not entirely new, but it's a new way to kind of distribute your work. So it's not quite a pre-order. So what would happen is if I have a project to put
Mm-hmm.
together, I would put it on Kickstarter is the biggest platform, but there's all kinds out there, and say, this is my comic I'm planning on making. I have a little bit of a sample, maybe I have a few pages ready, and say, this is what I'm going to make if I can hit this goal. So this way, you're taking a lot of the risk off of yourself. So
Yeah.
for an independent creator who maybe doesn't have Warner Brothers or somebody backing them and giving them all kinds of money to make these things. You could say, I need, X amount of money, and then I can pay my artists, and this thing will happen. And
Yeah.
if I don't make that amount of money, I don't get to make the project.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's kind of a way of moving risk over, but especially in the comics category, it's very successful. It's 2/3 of the projects that go up get funded, myself included. Like I've been very lucky so far, knock on wood. That everything I've put up has been funded. Yeah, so it's a great community now because so many people have built careers from going this route, right? That now we all kind of help each other out, and it's the way that I seem to have the most success is through this crowd, and you get a whole world of people available to you where you know you don't do that so much at going to shows and things like that. Yeah, it's a very powerful platform that isn't you're not beholden to some publisher or
Yeah.
platform like Amazon or something. Like you are doing it all yourself, and you just kind of set that threshold, and through that you can make your projects.
So it's very much in the way that I described you as a publisher because
Yeah,
you take your work, you become a self-publisher by taking your ideas, applying it through a crowdfunding platform, and you invite everyone. You say, hey, I need X amount of dollars. You as the donator, backer, thank you. You as a backer to that project would say, well, here's $5 towards your project, and then you get 1,000 people who give you $5 towards
exactly.
this project, which would equal some math number. $5,000? New math, see math. Adriano,
We need the blocks for that. Yeah.
what is it? Is it the abac? Is it an abaxis or a abraxas? What is that?
Abacus.
Abacus. Wait, what?
We got there.
Did I just say is abaxis a swear word? Because I feel like it's a really bad word. And now that we're on TV, so, there's
there might
censoring.
be a bleep. Yeah.
I'll have to, when I go to edit this, I'll be like, oh, I'm on, like I'm on Google. I'm Abraxas. So this is me just saying Abraxas multiple millions of times. I asked you what crowdfunding was.
Yeah.
Is crowdfunding hard?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so I mentioned it's kind of like a store for you to do things, but it's so much more than a store. There's an expectation when you're doing a crowdfunding campaign that you're not just providing the one product.
Mm-hmm.
You usually have to provide something exclusive, something there's stretch goals. So if you pass your goal and you want people to still fund you, you set a goal, but you never want to just hit that and finish. You always want to go well past it. To do that, you have to incentivize people with some freebies and some extra things. So there's a lot of thought put into that. But the biggest thing is you're on your own, right? Like the platform exists. There's a community there for sure. You might get lucky and end up on their front page, but beyond that, you're not getting any help. So it's all on you to get your name out there and really market yourself. So yes, I'm a writer, but I'm also very much a marketer. I probably spend more of my time doing that and, selling myself and talking to people.
I've heard that running a crowdfunding campaign is very akin to a part-time job. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
It's the side hustle, right? It's the day job, and then that's what I'm doing with the rest of my time.
So then we had talked about very fulfilling projects that you've done. I guess with each Kickstarter that is funded completely, there must be a real sense of accomplishment there as well.
100%. Yeah.
Do you find that you're more proud of yourself, or this is a question I didn't preempt you with.
That's all right.
Or do you find that you're proud of the people that have helped fund that project?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't happen without everyone supporting it, right? So I'm happy that I was able to reach these people. I think so. It's kind of like a non-answer, but it's I'm proud of myself and I'm proud of them for finding me. but like, but yeah, it's the ability to kind of it's an audience I never would have been able to reach. Like
Yeah.
I'm sending comics this month to Luxembourg. Like I've never been. I don't know anyone there.
Yeah.
Right, Luxembourg, Mexico. I've sent stuff to Brazil and
All
Australia
over the world.
and all over the world, and there's no chance I'm meeting any of these people in person. Right, so just the ability to reach these markets that are totally out of my reach.
Yeah.
Right? These reach twice, but
That's going to be an interesting idea or feeling, because when you see that, I'm not going to say order, I don't think order is the correct word, but when you see that person backing you from an international country that is, we're in Canada, Ontario, Canada, and so just beyond North America, it must be just be like, dang, like, wow, that's really awesome.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I had that feeling. I'm gonna start a Kickstarter campaign or a crowdfunding campaign just so that I could have that feeling.
I'll help you if you're into it. So.
But sometimes also too, I will, because this show by the wayside exists both on the internet and on television. Easy, and on television, the internet audience is a larger, broader audience. So sometimes there'll be a comment or a direct message of just some person.
Yeah.
And it's just like, how did, like, interesting, interesting that you've reached it. And I can get your feeling from that as well. So I guess maybe it is the same thing. When I introduced you as, hold on, let me just flip this back over, a writer, a letterer, a crowdfunder, and publisher of many things, Adriano, you also host a podcast.
I do.
That podcast, Instant Ink, the Instant Ink comic book podcast. It's a very fun concept. Can you let me know what that is?
Yeah, so it's a podcast where we get creators from wherever. Again, it's all online, so we're able to get folks from all over the world, and we get writers, artists, any kind of creator on, and we make a one-page comic together. As a writer, usually guide them through making a story. We use a prompt, so we don't know what we're going to do before we start.
Right on.
We use a prompt, and then we'll get drawing. And actually, Roberto's in the background. I don't know if you can see him milling about, but
there's Roberto way back there. He's waving.
So he's our artist on the podcast,
right on.
And he'll do the art for that, and then by the end we kind of have a one page. So we use that time to chat and just talk about anything. We've talked about Star Wars and how that's going, and we've talked about personal stories. We've gotten pretty deep on some episodes talking about like fear and regret and all that. So it really runs the gamut of whatever.
It's almost like a therapy session.
Almost, yeah. But sometimes we'll just vetch about the latest MCU movie and how it didn't land the way we wanted. So it's up to the guest what we're going to talk about.
Oh, that's cool.
But the main point is that at the end of it, we have a piece of art that didn't exist, an hour, 2 hours before we started talking.
Cool.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere, whole cloth. We just, the 3 or 4, whoever is on the show together, will come up with it and have something to show people by the end of it.
That's a very awesome concept, a very cool idea. Adriano, I have 2 questions for you. Number one, I had mentioned to someone what I did in my spare time, and that is drink coffee, play Fortnite, watch MCU movies. So it's very interesting that you had mentioned about an MCU movie not landing.
Yes.
So I'm going to really put you on the spot, and I'm going to ask what your favorite MCU movie is.
My favorite one?
Yeah.
So the one that pops to mind immediately is Winter Soldier, the Captain America Winter Soldier. That was it was like a proper thriller with Captain America in it. Like you could have taken him out and it would have worked anyway.
That's fair.
Right? So I just it was different, right? That's the one that popped in my head immediately, but I mean the answer is Endgame. Like
well, yeah, I'm just waiting for you just to say Endgame.
So that's the obvious answer. I just was going with the bespoke one. But yeah, like how do you end a whole decade-long series, right?
Sorry, Omar just walked through. Gave me an evil eye and then kept on walking. It's what happens here on By the Wayside. Omar skulks in the background.
Yeah.
So I know that Omar doesn't have a mic, and I do have to get him a mic usually for these background chats. But he says, Endgame is the best. It is. He just left the shop, so we can say anything we want about Omar.
Now's the time to talk.
See, yeah, I wish I had a camera on that one too. I love the guy. He's a great guy. Roberto, come over here for a second. We got an impromptu guest here as well, Roberto. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to take my mic off. You and I are going to share mics.
Okay.
Roberto, we were just talking about MCU movies, and our favorite MCU movies, because Adriano had said that sometimes MCU movies, they don't land properly. Roberto, I'm going to ask you what your favorite MCU movie is.
Right now I can think maybe the Iron Man.
Like the first one?
Yeah, the first one.
The first one, that's an interesting choice, because in my top 5, it would be in my top 5 of MCU movies, because not only did it start it all, but it's one of those MCU movies, or in general, one of those movies across the board with IP, that the casting is absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. Even with Terrence Howard, absolutely perfect. Thank you, Roberto. That's all. That's all you get. That's all you get. One appearance on TV. That's it. Thanks, Roberto. That's it. I'm not gonna clip it on. Adriano, thank you very much for coming in today, taking the time speaking with me here on By the Wayside. I know that at any point that this show airs, and at any point that I've seen you online, like Instagram or Substack, you always have a Kickstarter running. There's always a project running. So I hope everyone gets an opportunity to go and check out all the social information that pops up at the bottom of the screen. And thank you again. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Stick around, because we have a ton more, not usually a ton more. We got a lot more in this episode of By the Wayside, so don't go anywhere. Hi, I'm Jordan Middlebrook, the host of By the Wayside, and this is a segment that I like to call Omar Recommends. And in this segment, shop owner Omar Sayer recommends a comic book. He has carte blanche to recommend absolutely anything that he wants, but he just walked out of the shop. That's all right. That's what happens. He recommends comic books. Omar, I know you're in the shop somewhere. I saw you walk outside for a second. I heard you come back in. Do you have something to recommend today?
Do I ever?
Good. I'm very happy to hear that.
Today we are recommending Hawkeye by Matt Fraction and David Aya, or however you want to pronounce it, because I don't actually know.
Asia?
No.
The J
That's
silent?
definitely wrong.
The J is different.
You spell Asia differently.
Okay, recommend it.
So, so Hawkeye by Matt Fraction and David, I'm going to say Aya, is a great kind of neo-noir superhero story about Hawkeye, about, I can't even remember his name right now. Clint Barton. There we go. It's what the TV show on Disney Plus was predominantly based on, but it's a great series. I mean, Hawkeye, it kind of takes the questions like, what do superheroes do on their downtime, and kind of runs with that. And it's about these smaller stories within that, and like they're always kind of dealing with problems. But in the book, Clint Barton's he's not really a superhero. He's not perfect. He's just a dude. He has no superpowers. His power is that he's a good
shoots arrows.
He's a marksman. Yeah, he shoots arrows. And he's kind of taking these smaller stories. And I mean, what's the first line in the book? The first line in the book sums up the tone like super well.
We're very prepared on this show.
Yes, but no, it's true though. Of course,
This is all airtime. I'm going to keep it in. So if you're watching this on television, this is premium television right now.
Is.
Like when you listen to a radio show, and then they all stop talking for a very brief second.
Well, now I'm not going to do it.
No. I wrecked it for everybody. I will mostly wrecked it for you on this segment of Omar Recommends.
Always wrecking it for me.
If I'm not wrecking
Ever since he got bumped on the head like a couple episodes ago, he's just never been the same.
I don't know if the show's better or worse, or if I'm a worse or better person.
Okay.
It's just different.
I was going to jump into that. But yeah, so the story he's kind of a screw up a little bit. He's not perfect. Everything kind of goes wrong for him. And the majority of the story is him just trying to live in his apartment complex, which the Russian mob is trying to buy and piecemeal the bro mafia, the tracksuit mafia. If you don't start saying bro after this, like on repeat, he hasn't got you with the words. But yeah, and he has this like wonderful cast of characters. There's also Kate Bishop, who's the other Hawkeye in Marvel. She's a younger character from the Young Avengers. And they kind of have a kinship. And then there is the best character in the series, which is Lucky the Pizza Dog.
Or
you can just refer to him as Pizza Dog. It's not just that the stories are great here and telling this kind of like small scale superhero story. You have the small scale superhero story, but you have art in these pages that is absolutely unbelievable. What David manages to do in Hawkeye is some of the best storytelling I think ever in comics.
Awesome.
There's a car chase scene in there that's 100% the best choreographed car chase sequence in a comic book of all time. His panel layouts, the way they choose, even like with the colors, the limited color palette they choose to do to emphasize things, the way he draws, the way he really makes you read and see emotions, and even the fill-in artists that they get in the book are phenomenally complimentary to the main artist. They have people like Frank Avila. They have who's the other artist I'm trying to think of right now? Javier Pulido and Annie Wu. All very complimentary, and they normally put in the other artists when they're looking at a different character's perspective. So it's not just, you don't just get Clint Barton's perspective in this. You sometimes see the same story from all the different characters' perspectives.
That's good storytelling.
And one of the best stories, I think it's issue 7, is you get an entire issue from the perspective of the dog.
That's good storytelling.
Yeah. And it's phenomenal because like even the way they process the storytelling, he can only understand certain words, so you only get to see some of the action, and the speech bubbles are all like kind of broken up, and he only hears certain words that he can capture as the dog. But it's Lucky's story. It's Pizza Dog's story, and he's one of the most endearing characters in the book. He's a wonderful companion because they find him in like the first issue. He's it's again one of those moments where Clint's not perfect, but he saves this dog, and he kind of takes this dog in, even though he doesn't want a dog. And the dog kind of adapts to him and starts becoming this quote unquote, not a superhero, but like a good sidekick.
Yeah.
To Clint in the most like destructive ways sometimes, but it's phenomenal.
It's like having a kid. If someone comes into Wayside Comics to get a copy of this Hawkeye trade, if not for Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, for that story you just told about seeing a superhero comic book from the eyes of a dog, I think that's a really interesting thing.
It's a really cool issue. It was again just phenomenal types of storytelling happen in this book. And just flipping through it, like it's wonderful to see just these panel layouts and how they're telling the story. And here you go.
The art reminds me of it's very simple. It's very basic. And I don't mean in terms of skill.
So like this is a panel of the dog trying to figure out a murder.
Yeah, this is great stuff.
But it's all done in like this very minimalist style. And again, the panel layouts that David Aja is doing they're just phenomenal. It's beautiful work. And it's really hard not to just get lost into this very mundanely operatic world of Hawkeye.
I get that, yeah.
It's pretty fantastic. Again, the words are great. Matt Fraction really, I think, defines a lot of character for Clint Barton that would get taken from this point onwards, and how they interpret him. And same with Kate Bishop, and Clint Barton's brother plays a role in this as well.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And it deals with some interesting things that you might not see for other things. So like in the story, Clint Barton's also going deaf, which affects his accuracy. So it really...
I'll just look over here.
Wow. That's... I can't even say what I want to say.
That's TV, folks.
Yeah. Anyway, Hawkeye by Matt Fraction, David Aja. Phenomenal story. Definitely quintessential Marvel. Everybody should read this book. Even if you're not a fan of superhero comics, I think there's a lot to love in there. It definitely plays with the grand scope of big movies like Infinity War and Endgame, and really makes you feel like it's a Marvel thing, but at the same time it takes that sensibility of like an A24 film or independent film and laces it with that, and like that is the foundation of it. So you get this beautiful crossover.
Great recommend again, Omar. Thank you. You're really 2025. You're knocking them out of the park.
I try.
You do.
If someone's butt doesn't,
it's not
try to steal the scene.
I'm the host, Omar. I can do whatever I want. Stick around. We got lots more coming up on this episode of By the Wayside.
With even more butt squeaking, and then maybe we'll catch you by the wayside.
Don't go anywhere. And that is an episode of By the Wayside. I want to thank my guest, Adriano, and of course, Omar, who is kind enough to do the Omar Recommends and open up Wayside Comics for me to do my show here. My show, by the way, is called By the Wayside. The whole purpose of this show is to introduce you to creative people, people that you didn't know existed, people that you didn't know had creative jobs and used their creative minds to solve problems in their everyday life. And even in their job, solving creative problem solving in their jobs. You can find me and their show and all the social media things that are going to pop up here as I'm talking. Blah, blah, blah. Jordan, you do it every single episode. But it is important that you learn about me, that you learn about the show, that you learn about Wayside Comics, and you learn about those creative people, because that's the mission statement of By the Wayside, right? I'm Jordan Middlebrook, and I want to catch you by the wayside. Oh yes, I forgot. I didn't do the coffee thing. Omar, can you fill my coffee up, please?